All right, sculpture class. As we get started today, oh man, my camera is way up. There it is. Hey. And it's still not. That's why it's caught on something. Oop. Okay, I'm back. So when we start today, I wanted to talk to you guys about paper mache and paper mache sculpture. So we've looked at some of the traditional uses for paper mache. We've looked at some of the conceptions on what paper mache people think and how they and how it's perceived. So let's look at it in depth. So paper mache is actually comes from the French word, which is paper, and there's P-A-P-I-E-R with a dash mache, and there's a little over the A and a little over the E. But it means chewed paper. So it's a sculpting medium, and to be honest, we've had the use of paper mache for a couple hundred years. And you can even go back further. If you think of things that it equates to, if you look at like termites, and this is going to be weird, but termites, when they chew through wood, they chew it up, they make it into small little pulp, and that's how they build their nests. Other insects do things like they'll use mud to build nests. It's the same kind of idea, except for we're not chewing the paper. A lot of people will take an old blender, or nowadays they'll use shredders, and you can shred the paper. Or if you have one of the paper shredders that does like the little chips, you can chip out the paper. Then you add some water, and you can make a mush kind of out of it, and you can plaster it on. Traditional paper mache, as we look at it now, we're adding a paste or a binding agent glue. And that could be flour. It could be wallpaper paste, which is, depending on how you get it, sometimes is a flour-based substance, or sometimes is not an organic substance. And we're using the paper mache art paste because of it's really, to me, it's a better bond, a better glue. So it comes from, and paper mache means chewed up paper. It's little pieces of paper. We're not using little pieces though. We're using big strips. So we're putting on more of a bandage over a surface. Now, being that it is paper, it's thin by nature. So the only real structural support that we're dealing with here is a sheet of paper and a glued surface. So when we really think about it, it's a very thin shell, a thin coat that we're putting on. So we need to laminate those together. And part of our lamination process, we want to alternate our strips. And we alternate our strips because having it going in two directions is going to pull tension across the directions. And B, having the multiple layers is going to increase the strength. So we're not weight testing. We're not hooking up something to see at what level it tears. It's still paper. So it's not going to be super rigid. The glue will stiffen the paper. The glue, as it dries, will help hold the paper into the form you put it. So that's why when we look at this, we want to have 3 to 5 levels of paper. And honestly, when you think about it, 3 to 5 levels of paper is, I pulled it aside. Oh, there's Carson. So 1 level, 2 level, 3 level, 4 level, 5, almost at in 6 levels. So that's all we're dealing with here, bent into a shell. We're not talking about a really thick amount. So it's a process that's it takes time because it has to dry, it has to settle, and then we're gonna take things apart and we're gonna put things back together. So we wanna make sure that we understand that. Every time we build, we can build multiple layers at once. So you don't have to do one layer, wait, because it's a 24-hour dry period. I would do Sometimes I do 5 layers in one setting. I just make sure that I alternate those layers back and forth. I don't have to go perfectly perpendicular, as long as they're different directions. So if my first layer goes down flat, and my second layer can go across that, it can go at an angle, or it could go perpendicular. It's up to you, as long as we don't want to go flat, 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 because then everything goes the same direction, which also means we have a chance of seams lining up. We have a chance of a weakness being built into our structure. Whereas if I know I overlap, that overlap is going to stop seams. It's going to make sure that we bond things together. As I build, because I put my hand into the goo and I put it on the surface, then I apply the paper to that. What happens is the goo is like jelly and toast. So I smooth it out. I don't want to have clumps in it. I want to have a nice thin, even coat, and then I put the paper into it. Then the paste will absorb into the layer lower and into the layer above. Once the layer above is saturated, it's not going to absorb anymore. But if it's saturated, it means that the entire piece is absorbed with glue. That helps it with its bonding. You don't want to have dry spots of paper. So then when the layer goes down, I put another layer of paste over the top of it. And that layer of paste is, again, it's helping to saturate both directions. So the paste will absorb both directions and bond the paper together. There's a lot of uses of paper mache or traditional pulped paper, chewed up, ground up paper that have been used in different ways. Some of the things are, you can actually put them into molds and press them. And a lot of pulp paper, that's what was done with it. So we talked about the Venetian masks. Those were done with a pulped paper, a chewed up ground paper, mixed in with some water and a little bit of glue. They'd be put into a mold. The mold will be pressed together and then pulled out. Or they could be formed on top of a mold. In the case of where the person working would work, just lay out the paste, smooth it around the mold to make a mask. Those same processes are used when they make the porcelain masks. So they take the porcelain, they break it into a very viscous liquid. So it's a thick, chunky liquid, but it's still gonna kind of pour it into the mold, put the two halves together, let it set and dry, and then fire the porcelain mask. So it is your choice on what you're making. I had a couple of emails where people asked, hey, do we have to make a, and then they would ask the question, can I make a this or that? Whatever you want to make. I do want to say today's the 11th. So when we're looking at our calendar of events, seniors, yay, 15th is our last day. So seniors, the only thing you're going to see is me say, please make a portfolio on the 15th and have it turned in by the 20th. Everybody, seniors through. So seniors, you have until the 20th to get all your stuff turned in to me so I can get it graded and I can let the counselors know, hey, this person's good. Everybody else will have to the 22nd. And we're going to do something simple. We're just going to do a little museum search. And you're going to pick out a sculpture from the museum and you're going to talk to me about it. We'll do a little research and I'll put up that information on Wednesday. But everyone does a portfolio. Everyone finishes their creature. And then the 22nd for everybody else is our last day for new instruction. And that's, I'm going to have the new instruction would be the portfolio, but we're going to do that. So everybody else, your portfolio can be done. You can, if you wait till the 22nd, you can turn it in by the 27th. Whew. Seniors graduation is still on, and you've gotten a couple letters now, probably one from Mr. Rupp and Mr. Giha's community announcement, which explains how graduation is going to go. So you guys know that. What else do we have today? Really, I just want to talk to you guys about paper mache. I want to make sure that you're working on it. So if I haven't started, okay, it's Monday, I haven't started. If you think I make all my parts today and I get the first 2 coats of paper mache on today, that's 2 coats on everything. Tomorrow, I put 4 more coats on everything. Wednesday, I take apart my big pieces that I'm going to hollow out, and I put on any appendages, and I tape that up, and then I get 2 coats of paper mache on Wednesday. Thursday, I go over it and I clean up anything and I add little details. I add eyes. If I'm going to make teeth, I add teeth. If I'm going to have little spiky things, or if I'm going to put like little hair pieces on it. If I'm going to make it paper clothes, where I just come up to the edge and I fold the paper over so that it makes a nice ridge here. Then that's my Thursday dry. Friday, I am already done, because all we're doing is making it paper assembly. I take my pictures, I post them, I sit back and have a cookie to congratulate myself and have a good weekend. So that would be my pace to get through putting it all together this week. Other than that, I've been updating grades. I'm gonna keep updating grades. This week, well, if you're here watching this, you're probably not getting a phone call, so you don't have to worry about that. Otherwise, we're just moving forward. I will be going into school today. Today's my scheduled day to go in and kind of seal up my classroom. I will have a bin put out, and I have to ask when we're going to do that. But starting probably, I would think Friday the 15th. And all the way until the 27th, there will be a bin probably in the lobby. Once I know exactly where they're going to have me put the bin, I'll send you guys an email. Or better yet, better yet, I'll put it on Google Classroom so that it's easy for everyone to access. And then basically, if you have tools, if you're one of the people that took tools home, you're going to bring them in, you're going to put them in this bin. Do this for me. Take your tool. Maybe wipe it down a little bit, put it all into a plastic grocery bag or a paper bag, whatever you got. And then make sure that inside of there, you've got a paper that says your name and the list of tools. So that way, when I get there, I can just pull it out, because I'll come in this summer and I'll inventory everything and put it all away. So there'll be a drop-off bin. If you have like leftover art paste, just kind of twist tie the bag or tape the bag shut, put it back in the box if you can, or if not, just put it loose inside of the tool bag. Just make sure nothing's going to poke it. Anything else that you have that needs to come back to my room, put it in there. Kaya, I have some of your artwork in my classroom, and what I'm going to do is today when I go in is I'm going to pack it all up and I'm going to put it in the main office. So whenever you're by school, starting Tuesday, if anybody's going to be by school, they can go there and tell them to hit the buzzer so that someone at the office will say, how can we help you? And say that you're here or they're here to pick up your artwork. Because I know I have some of your artwork in my classroom and I want to get that back. If anybody else has artwork in my room that you need, that I can find, tell me where it is and I will get it, and I'll do the same thing so that it's packed up. All right, so we have a couple of questions and we're gonna get to those. So how to make claws? Ooh, so like dragon claws or long toes. So if I were making claws, I'm gonna make claws one of 2 ways. Way one, if you watch any of Dan's videos, he takes a coat hanger and then he'll twist paper around it. So he'll start at the top and he'll slowly wrap some paper and then he'll thicken it up as he goes down. I like to take it and I take a little piece of tape and I twist that tip and I wrap that with some tape just to hold it. And then I like to twist the paper on. So as I wrap it around, I twist it, wrap it around, twist it, and build up paper to make a claw that way. That's way one. Way two is I could take, if I've got some cardboard, and this is a way that I've started to kind of tell people to use, is if you cut the cardboard, if you think of a claw or a really long finger, and I cut my cardboard out, what I can do is I cut a center piece and then I cut a smaller piece for each side. And then if I need to make it thicker, I cut another small piece on each side so that it slowly stacks out and gets smaller. I make that, and then I just wrap the paper mache around it. The nice thing about using the cardboard is you get the exact shape you want. The nice thing about the hanger method is I can bend it and I can make it long or short or however I want in one pop. If you have really small ones, if you cut the hangers ahead of time, you can paper mache them, and then you can either wait to the fingers or toes or palm or foot dry, then you cut open holes and then you just stick the claws in, tape them in place, and then paper mache. The stuff is it's gooey. I mean, when you first do it, it's kind of I noticed this. I like to, when I'm working with the mache mix, I like to know that's what I'm going to do. I don't clean my hands while putting on layers or anything like that. I try to do it all at once. That way I'm not constantly washing my hands. I've seen people do that where they get a little bit of goo and they put it down and they'll do a layer, then they'll wash their hands, then they'll do it again, they'll put on a layer, they'll wash their hands. And really it's just a kind of a waste of stuff. So I do everything at once and then I wash my hands once to get all of the goo off. A lot of times when I'm done, the last thing I do is I'll grab a paper towel and I'll wipe my hands with the paper towel before I wash them and get the leftover goo off my hands, and I'll put that paper towel layer on top. And especially if you have, so at school we have the brown kind of recycled paper, which we all know absorbs. At home, if you have even cheap paper towels, they'll absorb well, but they also can make a nice texture. So you can crinkle them when you put that on, and it'll make that outer layer a nice texture. Then wash my hands. Okay, so that's kind of funny. Yeah, it's gooey. All right. Is there any other questions about working with paper mache? Okay, if you so if you're making something for it to sit, yes. So basically, so here's the question: if you're making something, oh, my sweatshirt just fell down behind me, for it to sit on, and it's a solid piece like a crescent moon, can you make that out of cardboard? And then how many layers of the paper stuff do you put on? So if I'm making a base or a pedestal for my whatever, I would put you can put down, it depends on like how much support you need. So like this guy here, if this was my base and I just want to have a nice disc for the base, then I could just cut out a single piece of cardboard and I could just put the top layer paper mache. I don't even need to do the bottom. I can leave the bottom complete cardboard. If though, like this rock piece, if I were making vertical walls and I'm taping those together and I'm going to have some horizontal pieces to it, tape all that together, every seam, every edge, so every seam and every edge, I would say I'd want to have at least 2 to 3 coats of paper mache there, just to make sure that as it dries, it kind of holds down. And depending on what the base is, if the base is meant to be smooth, 1 smooth, fine layer of paper mache is great. If it's meant to be rough, then 2 layers of paper mache, and that top layer I can crunch up a little bit. Your support can also end up going inside of your creature's body or inside of whatever you're making's body to help pull that weight down into the base. So it actually will put it'll merge the base and the piece together so they're one thing. All right. You guys have any other questions for me? Hey, Kaya. Hi, Kaya's cat. Hey, that's looking great. Your sound's off, so hang on a second. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Yeah,
right.
I'm it's cool.
So, what are you gonna do for feet?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, cause that's what I was asking about. Cause it's got claws.
Yeah.
And it's like, this stuff is really irritating to work with.
So here's my first question is, did you make the wings with coat hangers?
No, my mom got this wire mesh stuff, and it
Oh
works.
yeah. Just be careful you don't cut yourself when you're chopping that up.
Oh yeah, no, I already did that.
Yeah, that hurts. I think what I would do is, man, so do you want like really long claws, like kind of scary stuff, or do you want something, because if you did, you could probably do like a single piece of cardboard. So hold on a second, let me move that note, turn this on. So I'm going to switch my camera real quick to that one. So you could, depending on length, you could take a simple piece of cardboard and then you could just arch out this top piece and then make a second piece of cardboard. So I'm just going to dot that second one. So it's not quite as big, but then this gives you a little bit of thickness. So the end would look like one piece of cardboard, two pieces of cardboard. And if you want to, you could add a third piece if you think you needed third on the other side, and then just paper mache over that. And then this will give you, this laminated together cardboard is going to give you a very solid, strong base to hold that on. And then I make this length. This length becomes enough that it shows the kind of idea that you want. You know, like if you want really scary claws, you might make them long. If you want to make them more toe-like, maybe I don't have such a arched angle here. I come out and then I end it, and then I just have like a little rounded piece. But between this and this, that'll be good. And then if you have multiple claws, so if you look at your leg, and this is the end of my leg. If I have my claws come out like this at an angle to each other, then I have the base of the foot and each of these pieces to distribute the weight. So think of kind of coning. And those will be pretty solid because of the cardboard. And that's going to take all of your weight. And then having these spread out is going to help it be more stable. Now, if you, on the other hand, have your leg and you have a claw and a claw and a claw, it's still going to hold the weight pretty well. But this tighter range is going to, one, you might actually have to make like a circle to put for a foot that the leg goes into for all the claws to fit so they can face forward. And it's also gonna allow it that if both feet go the same direction, it would allow it to maybe tip from side to side. But if your legs go, so I'll use 2 pencils. If these are my legs and they go into my body, then feet facing forward, I should be good, but it might want to tilt backwards because of the wing. Whereas if I have these things spread out, or if I have a foot like that, and if I have another foot like this, it's going to compensate for that, and it's not going to tilt either direction. It's going to stay pretty set. So that would be my advice on how to handle your feet. I would do spread out and I would make them out of cardboard. Possibly make a circle for the foot. And then that way you actually have a piece to put it into, because you have really thin legs coming down. It's gonna look cool though.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody else, anything?
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
So if you're using something as like that you're like paper macheing on, because it's like a base, like it's like what you want to use because it's like the shape of like your like appendage or whatever.
Yeah.
it's already hollow, you don't have to like hollow it out, right?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, if it's already structurally sound, the only reason we're hollowing things out is to lighten them up. So we hollow out heads. And again, if you watch any of Dan's videos, he hollows out heads because the head is mostly mouth. So like if you think of like his dragons and stuff, it's an egg shape, and then he hollows it out so that when he puts it, he doesn't put it back together like this. He opens it up, and then he can make these really long open mouths. That's why his original book was called Screamers, because he likes to have the mouths open because it gives it kind of an emotion to it, and it makes it look more interesting than if they're all like that. So if it's something that you're working on, like if you have a cardboard tube, so if you have a paper towel tube or a toilet paper tubes and you've used those, they're already hollow. You don't need to do anything to them, and you're gonna be just fine.
So if you have like, let's say like an insect or whatever, and like the legs have to like carry the body weight of like the body, should the legs not be hollow?
So on my spider, where's he at? Oh, he's wandering around. Hang on a second. These guys are solid because they're really not that big. This is the same way this is done the same way that if Kaya wants to make her claws out of, there's a hanger in the middle, and this is that twist the paper on, and this is pretty solid. And you can get them to really fine points or rounded edges. Just depends on what you want the look to be. But these are solid, and then the hangers inside are helping support it. That's what I would do. I wouldn't try to hollow this out. Not just the only reason I would ever hollow these out is if these were like antenna and I was putting it on my head, and the weight of this, and really this doesn't weigh much at all, but if the weight of this for some reason was causing like my head was thin and it causes it to collapse, then maybe I would hollow this out. But really, by the time you get, these have probably 3 coats on them. By the time you get 3 coats on them, they're going to be really strong. The paper inside has absorbed enough mache that it's become pretty thick and strong. Wouldn't worry about it. What point would I worry about it? If I'm getting up to an appendage that is maybe an inch in diameter, that's when like if I have arms up, my guy is surrendering. If my arms are in the air and these are solid and they're coming forward or they're causing problems to the body, then I would open them up. But if they're under an inch, I think the amount of work you're going to do to hollow it out, to pull that weight out, probably isn't going to really be worth the effort.
Okay.
Cool. Use as much stuff as you can find. So like, toilet paper rolls, those will, now don't go and take the toilet paper roll off the roll because that's still pretty expensive. But like any like little cardboard you've got laying around, any boxes you've gotten, go to it. Think of the paper mache as the skin of your critter or your object or whatever you're making. So if the final outcome is supposed to be textured, then I'm going to take that very last layer of paper, and the lower layers can still be wet. And I'm going to put something on, and I'm going to crunch it together. I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to physically crunch it up so that it gives me a texture. I would practice a little bit. So like when I'm working a little bit, I would take a piece, put it down, and I would practice crunching. And the reason is you don't want to have, you want to make sure that you like the texture. If you get all the way through and it dries, and you're like, ooh, I hate that texture, not much you're going to do at that point. You can try to crush it back into itself, add a little bit of paper mache mix, go over and try to crush down the hardened paper, and then put one thin coat over the top. So I would practice at first. Paper towels leave great texture because they're made to absorb the paste, which means they're going to hold the paste and they're going to become fattened by it. And then that allows you to get in there. And when you pull it together with your fingers, it's going to crunch and stay. tissue paper isn't bad. I know a couple people had said stuff about what if we use colorful tissue paper. It may not crush well though. So if you want to have like a bumpy, rough skin, tissue paper might be hard to do because it's so thin and its absorption level is going to be a lot less. Coolio? All right, then I'm going to stop our recording here. Okay. Wave bye to everybody on the record.